Hi, my name is Stefan, and I'm going to tell you how you can build a scalable, fault tolerant, and decoupled infrastructure using SNS and SQS. And so, for this example, we're going to have a Lambda function that's going to be making a producer. So, it's a producer function which we're going to generate email body or email message, and then that's going to be fed into the SNS topic, which is then going to be distributed among different subscriptions. One of the subscriptions is going to be SQS, which is our queuing system, and this is going to decouple our our infrastructure, making it much more reliable. And then the SQS is going to trigger another Lambda function, which is going to pull from the SQS, which is called the consumer, and then it's going to send or communicate with AWS SES, which is a simple email services, and send it to this current email, which is enquire@webstars.com.au. So to get started, we need to first create a function, which is going to be our producer, and we'll call this producer. We're going to use Python as our the runtime. We're also going to allow this to communicate with the SNS. So you can either go to this and put SNS and type in SNS, and you're going to see this particular option. But since I've already created one, I'm just going to use existing role, and it should give me an option, the SNS action. Probably both of them works. And then you don't need to do any of this, but we'll go ahead and create our function. While that's being loaded, we're going to go to our SNS and create our topic. We'll create our topic. So SNS is like an endpoint. It's using the publish and subscription model. Basically, you're going to be pushing the message to a topic, and the topic is going to distribute it among different subscriptions, almost like a multicast message. And then we're going to call this email topic, and then it'll ask us to whether we want it FIFO and standard. We'll go with the standard because order does not matter, and we need at least one delivery. If you want just one, and if you want to avoid duplicate emails, or if you want it to be only published into one subscription, if there are multiple subscriptions, FIFO is the best. But since we only have one subscription, which is our SNS queue, we're going to go with standard email topic. We don't really need. We can enable encryption. This will help with transits because we don't really store information, but it handles information on the go and encrypts them. We don't really need to do anything here. These are just advanced configurations if you want to make sure you have logging on or AWS tracing on. Then we are going to create SQS because we need to make sure that we create our SQS before we can configure it as a subscription point. We're going to go to SQS. We have two different versions. We have FIFO again and standard. If you want to make sure that we only have at least once delivery, then this is the best. And also, if order really doesn't matter, especially for a bulk email, then standard is the best. But if you only want to make sure there aren't any duplicate emails and all, then FIFO is a good one because, again, if there are many producers or many consumers fetching data from the queue, it might process it twice. So this is something that you need to do, but we're going to go with standard because the order does not really matter. We'll go this the email queue. The email queue. Visibility time is the time for it to be whether when a message is being processed by a consumer, that's how long you need to hide the message so that other consumers can't take it. This is usually supposed to be almost the same level as the Lambda configuration. So when you're consuming the consumer Lambda function should be less than the visibility timeout. So that's something you need to remember. And then we have the retention. We don't want any delays. That's pretty good. We can enable encryption, uses KMS. And we are going to update this for a while. We need to provide access to the SNS to get information from the SNS, and also we need to give access to the consumer, which is a consumer function. So we're gonna do that, but we're just gonna change that later and configure the subscription. So once we created the queue, we go to our create a subscription, and we have the protocol. We'll call this the email queue. We have to enable raw message delivery because that's only going to show the body and only the message is going to be sent. If you don't do that, it'll send all the request headers, attributes, and all. We can do also simple filtration, very simple, but if you want advanced filtration, I would recommend using Event Bridge. But yeah, they have the dead letter queue as well. If, for example, if it there's an option in queue as well, if it does fail, you want it to go to a different queue as a backup to maybe perform those maybe it's crucial information and you don't want it to lose, you don't want those information to be lost. So a dead letter queue is important. So once that's done, it's connecting with that. We have the queue open. We're going to create a consumer function as well because it's going to be much easier. We'll create another function called the consumer, just making sure we got all the services that we need running. It's easier to link, and we'll call this consumer. Again, we'll call this Python. Doesn't really matter the runtime. We'll create a new role because I don't have one. We'll call this the SN. Probably call this consumer role. For this, we might have to change this a bit later, so we don't need the policy templates because we need much more control of the consumer role. So we'll skip that for now. We'll create that role instead, or maybe you can do that, create a new role, but we'll go with the Lambda function. So it's basic, not really needed even. We'll go with that. Create the function, should work. We'll set up our Lambda, and then once that's done, which is taking a bit longer than expected, we are going to our IAM role, and then we're going to add all the policies, all the permissions it needs. So where is the one that I created? Probably it's this. Yeah, so it has the basic permissions. We're going to add a policy. You can also create an inline policy if you want to give the least possible, which is recommended, but I'm just going to go with the standard policies that are available because it's much easier. And we're going to search SES because we need the consumer function to communicate. We'll just give full access for this because we need to send. We'll also give SQS. We'll probably get the read. We'll just give full access again because you can just read through each one to see which roles you really need. I think this would be more likely the one, but we'll just go for that. And that's pretty much it when it comes to attaching the policies. And now this has access, but now we also may need to make sure that the policy in the queue policy has access. I already have one, and we need to change a bit, so making sure the ARN matches. So this shows that the root has access to the queue service. We need to make sure that this matches with the queue. We'll check that if the ARN matches. And that's the one. We go to ARN and let's see if this matches. This most likely should match. Yeah, it does match. We changed the role, so we have a consumer role. We'll use this instead. Go to our thing, and basically what it means is that you're providing access. This role has access to perform these specific tasks. So anything that is attached, when this row is attached to the Lambda, has access to SQS, delete, and all, and to this particular queue. Then lastly, we have to have the topic which we created. The topic is probably somewhere here. We need to get the ARN here, and once that's done, we'll probably have to, yeah, so this shows that the topic has access to the queue. Yeah, again, these are just topic names. You can call this any SID and all. Let me just see if everything seems to be right here. Seems about right, yeah. You can name this whatever you want, to be honest. It's not really needed. Yeah, and let's just save it. Now we're gonna go and create our producer. We're gonna reload this, and we got a function. This is a simple function to produce a message. So this is going to be fed into the SNS, and then it's going to be fed into the SQS. So we'll just try that out. If it's successful, it will show a successful message. Okay. And we need to make sure the topic ARN matches as well, because it does change. Yeah. So yeah, and make sure the region's correct, everything else is right. I think so. And then we're gonna deploy, and then we're gonna test it out though to see if it's added to the queue. Really simple. We just need to invoke it. So just invoke it. Should say it's successful. Yeah, message sent to SNS. And then if it has been successfully pushed and fanned out, it should it's probably to do with the queue policies. Let me just check that out. But SNS is subscribed to this. Yep, it looks like it's confirmed. Something to do with here though. Or maybe it does take some time, so no, let's do send and receive. Let's poll for messages. Let's just try that for now. Polling means that it's going to be waiting for it to see if there are messages. It's going to be polling. You can actually do long polling or short polling by configuring the time. That doesn't seem to be any messages, so just going to stop it. This is probably because it doesn't, even though this was successfully sent to SNS, it says it's sent to SNS. Probably the queue policy is not accepting it, so that's why the queue policy is quite important. Oh, it seems like it wasn't saved. That's why. So I think I did not save the queue policy before. Yeah, it does not. Okay, so this has root access to email queue. Sounds about right. Consumer role. Yeah, to email queue. Hopefully that's the right one. Yeah, and then we have the topic. So the topic is here, and that has access. Let me just check that out. Yeah, I think I did something wrong here. The topic should be here, and then and this comes to ARN. So it's just opposite, because it's just saying that the queue has access to allows access anything that it's a condition, so it accepts anything from a resource number of the topic. It should be now correct. We'll just save this and try it again. Hopefully that's saved. Yeah, we're gonna test this, and it should be able to now. Should be there. Should be one message. The voice. Oh, sorry. I'm just supposed to be the email queue instead of the push. So this really does. You need to know. There's also a policy generator if you really want, because most of the code is you can find it available. There are so many resources online. And let's try now. It should work now because I have given it access. Yeah, so now it shows it's working. I just had to change the policies a bit. It was a bit incorrect. Now we can do a thing called you can test it out and just do a thing called polling. So we can poll it, and then once you can see the message here, and that's because we have enabled raw message. So now we're gonna paste our consumer code. So our consumer code, we need to have the exact URL, which is so we don't actually need to have the SQS URL because we're not going to be manually fetching it. However, we're going to do a trigger where whenever SQS gets a new message, we're going to trigger this Lambda function and pass it through arguments. So the event's going to hold the body. So this is much more easier. You don't need to. It does avoid a lot of implications. And also, we have WebStars. It's going to be sending it through using the email this, and it's going to be sending it to this. You need to choose the SES location that you have enabled. You need to have production access, and you also need to validate your email to make sure this one's there. I can just pull out AWS SES to show how it is. I can just show you a few steps because I already got access and I've got production access and all. So I got 50,000 emails per thing, and there's also a rate limit, but it's very high, 14 emails per second. You can do something called identities, where you can create an identity, which is basically verifying your email or verifying the domain. And then you have if you don't have this set up, you can actually request for production access. But since I don't have it, let me just go for a different, just for the sake of this, go to Mumbai. I won't have access here. I won't have any identities as well. But see, it shows that I'm in sandbox, and I only can send it to people who have verified to, even though it says 200 emails per thing. So, or any testing even, it needs to be a verified email. You have identities and all of that. What you have to do is, most of the time we need to request a production access. They have given an option here where you have to directly open a contact. I don't think they have that anymore, but now you just have to directly go to support and ask, I need access or something like that for this region. And most of the time they ask you what's it for. You need to provide reasons like it's for either marketing. They ask what kind of marketing stuff you're going to be using. If it's for transactional emails, like if you perform a specific thing. So it depends. There's a thing called also SMTP protocol, a user credential. So it's a credentials. It provides you a credential, almost like an IAM user. So it actually provides full access to use the mail service. I don't recommend using it for this. You usually need this if you have a third-party app, and the third-party app needs to use AWS SES. But if you're going to use something which is in your AWS account, you probably want to use IAM roles because it's much safer. And if, for example, if it gets leaked out, you have a hard time. You need to change it. You need to get a new request. You need to request a new credential. You might get banned even if you go above. And so I'm going to avoid that. It says right here, production access granted. you need to make sure that you have maintain a reputation. So yeah, I don't usually use it that much, but basically you want to make sure that the complaint rates are below there are certain levels. If it goes above a certain threshold, yeah, even you should try to maintain uh, a rate below these as well, because even if it's just 0.1% complaint rate, you could be banned, and that's just a protocol that AWS uses, because they just want to make sure that they also want to avoid those kinds of leaks, because sometimes your credentials might be leaked out, and they want to make sure your reputation is safe. So that's pretty much it, and you don't have to do any credential. You just have to give IAM role to that region as well, and it seems like it's all good. There's nothing to do here. We can't do test yet because we need to make sure that the SQS triggers, and as you can see, it's already triggering, which is interesting. So I didn't do that. Yeah, but how it works is that you can either go to, which I'm going to show you here, you can go to SQS, and we can do, go back, do this, and we can do configure Lambda function. We can choose the function we want, which is consumer, and save. But if you want more detailed stuff, you could go to consumer, add trigger here, do the same thing, the SQS, and yeah, the SQL email. You can have batch size. Technically means that you want the Lambda function to get 10 messages at most. So even though you have a polling of, say for example, 20 messages at max, it's only going to take 10, and it's going to repeat. It's going to create another Lambda function. It's going to run another Lambda function to perform the rest. The match window is like the time it can take for it to, the maximum time it can take to gather the messages. We're going to go with the batch size, which is option the recommended. We're not going to really do anything. And once you created that, you actually can now test it out, because it should work hypothetically. And we'll test it out by invoking the thing. We'll go to our queuing system. Should say that it's in flight, or it says message is 2 now. It's probably going to trigger a message is in flight. Oh, I did not trigger the. Let's purge this for once, because I think I added one. I'll purge this. Purging means you're just emptying it out or resetting the queue. Let's purge this to see there's nothing. We'll check if I did get any emails. Doesn't seem like it. Alright. We can also go to a thing called monitor, and this you can actually check out whether this function is triggered using CloudWatch, and I'm going to show that as well, because that's kind of important, especially if you want to debug your check the logs. Very important. Let me just check there. Hopefully, let's do a test now. Let's test the producer. Should work. Well, it says message is available, but it has not called the consumer. Probably because the consumer is not triggering. It does say it's triggered. We can check the logs to see why it's not being triggered as well, if there's any problems. But it does take a long time. Okay, let's check the log stream. It shows the consumer is. What time was this? Doesn't seem like it's being. Let me check. This is okay. Sounds about right. Let's remove this trigger just to make sure that it's working as expected. Let's just add one from the start. You can add a trigger here. SQS, the email queue. Hopefully I've given access to, yeah, we don't need to do anything in this, but hopefully I've given access to this role to perform SES is successful. Yes, sounds about right. Get this and we'll delete all the logs in this. We'll create a new request. Seems like it's been processed because, yeah, so there are two messages here. Both the messages went. So I'm going to show you now, probably because it wasn't configured properly. So I just re-triggered it, so using SQS again. And then I'm just going to demonstrate this by clicking it multiple times. You could also, obviously, let me just do it like here. Let's put for I in range, maybe not that many times, but 1 to 10. I don't want to get charged too much. We'll delete this to show that all the messages are. Let's delete there. We need to make sure that we indent this. It's using Python. Yeah, so this will run for this many times, and then we can obviously use, yeah, this technically means that email content plus string I. Yeah, so it's gonna say email content, and I'm gonna say this is email number. Yeah, should work, should not cause any problems, especially because the syntax works. It's going to send 10. Remember, it's going to send 10. This is going to evoke 10 messages. Before I do it, I'm just going to increase the timeout period for this because it might take some time to send it. So then we can say messages sent. So then all the messages will. You can always use try and it will show any other problems. But we'll deploy this. Hopefully this won't cause any problems. We'll configure it for a timeout of 5 seconds. I think that's reasonable for this. And yeah, we can now run it, and it should decouple. It should make sure all the messages are sent. There could be some problems very rarely because SES does have a rate limit, but since 10 is now technically a rate limit, all should go. But if you have those kind of problems, we have a dead letter queue, which I discussed before. I'm going to test it out. Oh, something's wrong with my. Oh, unfortunately, my code was wrong. I forgot to put a plus sign. Again, it's quite important that you be careful with this kind of stuff because you are technically using AWS services. So for example, if you accidentally put 1000, you are going to be sending 1000 maybe to the wrong person. So that's why it's important Let me try. That's it. Deploy. Fail to request credentials. Sounds like a weird. Let me just reload this. It seems like something's wrong with the AWS credentials. It's probably to do with my internet. Let's give it a while because my internet's a bit weird. Yeah, it's just a timeout in my internet. And let's check that out again. Let's do a minor change and it should work. So we can check, we should get 10 of them. We can count directly. We're not going to try more than 10 because I don't want to make sure that I waste. I do get charged for this. But this is how you would do architecture using SQS and SNS. You can also do SNS fanning out with multiple queues if you want to go across different services. It seems like it's saved. So we just deploy it. Deploy it successfully. We'll test it out. Go to tests. And we need to create a new test. But yeah, all good. Because it was that successful. Okay. Message is sent. It is kind of successful. I think I pressed twice. Yeah, I pressed it twice. So as you can see, 18. So I sent. Let's see. Is it 1 to 10? Yeah, so it won't reach 9. So that's 18 is perfectly correct. It would execute 9 times. Let me just check. I'll show you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Should be maybe here 9. Yeah, so because you won't reach 10. Up to range is up to 10. So 18 actually works. So it wouldn't send 10. Sorry, it was incorrect. It's supposed to be if I want to do 10, I had to make this 0. But the idea is that this would send, because I clicked accidentally twice, it would send 2 times 9, which is 18. And so it seems like it's working. There weren't any rate limiting problems, which is kind of weird. There should be, but it shows that all the messages went through. It's using a decoupling mechanism because it's stored in a queue. So this is how you can build a very simple infrastructure. You can actually, this is honestly how you would even create a bulk mailing system, because you can obviously just run Lambda functions way easier. So if you just want to send, if you want to have a CSV file, we call this a CSV. It'll read all the emails from the CSV. You can just put all your message here, your subject here. It'll work by itself and it'll work like a charm. So I hope this was quite informative for you guys. You guys know how to make a bulk mailing system. I'm not going to try it across different emails. This is my email that I'm a testing email that I'm using. You can obviously use your own, but be careful when you're using production access. You can obviously use SES with Sandbox, which is basically just for you. But technically, this is how you would create your own decoupling system. You can also create another queue and connect it with SNS, and it'll become like a fanning system. Again, this infrastructure doesn't really cost you much, except for every try you run the Lambda function and also SQS and all, but it's very cheap. I think the most, to be honest, SES would be the largest because it is billed, I think, per 1,000 emails sent. Again, it's quite cheap, but again, it's very important to be careful with what you do, especially when you're doing IAM roles. Don't create credentials. You can obviously explore different stuff about SQS, but this is how you would do. If you want to do filtering, say for example, let's see if I can do it then. During this time, just trying to keep it short, but we have a filtering system. SNS is a filtering system as well. we can hypothetically filter it based on these conditions. So there are like conditions that you can place if you want to say, for example, you want to apply for any, like the body must contain, like for example, these words. I think that's a good example because let me see, you can technically copy paste. Yeah, we can just basically use this, and what it means is that you're going to be only using these keys, that it needs to have these keys or like that. If it doesn't, these are very basic filtering, but if you want to go to much more advanced, you can use event bridge. It's not technically a fan compared to SNS because SNS is a pub and sub model. Event bridge is not, it's just a linear model, which is good for if you have just one subscription. But yeah, you can have different rules, you can do much more filtering process and all. So I hope this was much more informative and it helps you. Thank you.